Good morning, everybody. Sorry if that's too loud. But we're going to get started here in the next couple of minutes. I just wanted to run through the quick itinerary we have for today. Americans are going to do their workshop, and then we're going to transition to a short break, and then we'll have lunch, and we'll do a panel kind of towards the second half of lunch. And we hope to have everything done and everybody can hit the road or take the flight home, Pepperdine, by about 12:30 today. So thanks for coming.
Where is your...
Oh, I think left it right there.
There?
Yeah.
And then the clicker should just be
Kyle, I didn't even put your name in the thing. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to put your name in here?
Go ahead, so you can.
Do you want me to? Just lazy. I can. Let me do it.
So this also has a laser pointer on it. Okay. So
I don't need that.
if you want, it's just this green button right here, and then forward, back.
All
And
right.
then this microphone is on the whole time. But if you need hand mics or something, they're right over there.
Okay.
And
What's
start.
your email? What's your email? Yeah. 7584. Okay. You don't need that. Did you know that? No.
You have to turn it on. Yeah. Enterprise screen. I was testing.
You know what we're talking about?
I think there are questions.
Okay. Answer questions. It's like Wall Street. All right, are you getting mic'd up? Are you getting mic'd up?
I am not.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't have a microphone. I will be moderating.
I wonder what's up there behind the glass.
It looks like a conference room.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get started a few minutes earlier, just so we can get everyone on the road a little bit quicker. But we're going to start the last event for the weekend, which is the Editor-in-Chief discussion panel. We have a few different editors-in-chief up here right now, so feel free to. We have from Georgetown Public Policy Review, we have Robin, I don't know how to say her last name.
Betty Ten Renzel, yeah,
Yes.
it's tricky.
And then we have from George Washington, we have Ann and Christine, and we have Adam from Pepperdine. So we tried to get a few other reviews up here that weren't up here earlier for workshops or anything. So feel free to ask any questions of the group. I'm going to fire some questions at them too. You can send your questions to our NJC hashtag if you want, if you don't want to ask them, or put them anonymously and I'll ask them for you. But please, if you have any questions, let us know. So this is actually the first year that we've had an event, a specific event at NJC sponsored by an organization. So this year, the Editor-in-Chief panel is being sponsored by the Pi Alpha Alpha Honor Society. For those of you who don't know what Pi Alpha Alpha is, Pi Alpha Alpha, or PAA, is the Global Honor Society for Public Affairs and Administration. There are more than 160 chapters located around the world at NASPA schools. NASPA, in case you're not familiar with it, is the network of schools of public policy affairs and administration. Pi Alpha Alpha is run by NASPA. The purpose of PAA is to encourage and recognize outstanding scholarship and accomplishment in public affairs and administration. Its objectives, such as fostering integrity, professionalism, and effective performance, promote the advancement of equality in education and practice, of the art and science of public affairs and administration. PAA membership identifies those with the highest performance levels in educational programs, preparing them for public service careers. Just within Virginia, there are several schools that have chapters of the society. George Mason, James Madison, Old Dominion, VCU, and Virginia Tech. I see William and Mary kind of glancing at one another over there. As far as I know, William and Mary does not have a chapter. Schools attending NJC this year that do have chapters, however, are GW, American, Delaware, Cornell, and Pepperdine. So Virginia, I actually just spoke with some officials from some faculty members from our administration, and they're very interested in starting a chapter here. I would bet that we'll probably have one in the next couple of years. If you're at all interested in starting a chapter of the Honor Society, you can find more information about it on NASPA's website and the Pi Alpha Alpha website as well. One interesting thing that the Honor Society does is that they support individual excellence through annual awards. They have an annual conference every year. This year the conference was in Albuquerque last November. And they recognize the chapter of the year and also the advisor of the year for the different chapters throughout the country. Additionally, an award is given out for the best master's manuscript and the best doctoral manuscript. And so every year I think the deadline is usually around June 30th. They accept submissions for manuscript or the best research article that any policy or affairs or administration student has written, and they offer an award for the best manuscript that they receive every year. So it's a really great event that I think a lot of people actually don't know that much about. So if you're interested at all, again, please visit the website. We would love to have next year, if someone here were to submit and win, we would love to have you provide a brief presentation about your manuscript or about your research and come back here next year and tell us about it. So it's a really great thing, and I hope everyone can participate, or if you're interested in starting a chapter, please don't hesitate to contact NASPA or PAA. So we're going to get started with some of the questions for the panel. I'm just going to get started. Again, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. So Georgetown and Pepperdine, I'm going to start with you. So my first question would just be, how do you view your role as the editor-in-chief? So what do you spend most of your time in your organization doing? What do you kind of see yourself as having a hand in every part of the organization? Do you spend most of your time planning events? Do you spend most of your time in the editorial process? Are you someone who likes to micromanage everything? Like, what works best for your organization, and how do you define your role?
I think that at the Georgetown Public Policy Review, we've kind of, each year, I think the team has grown a bit. So now we've got, we have our print team, we have our online team, we have a small interview team. We're trying to develop a media team, and we have an events and finance teams as well. So I think, just for a little bit of context, I was working on the print team before becoming the editor-in-chief, so I sort of am more familiar with that process. But I think really how I spend a lot of my time is trying to make sure that all of those teams are working together, are communicating with each other, are sharing ideas. So if we have, for example, an article up about something and there's a possibility that we could do an interview that might tie in with that, trying to make sure that those people are working together. So that's, I think, one aspect of what I do, like really just coordination. I also, I think another focus is to sort of make sure that we're present sort of at student events and that the administration is kind of aware of what we're doing. And so I sort of spend a lot of time trying to make sure that that's happening and bringing other staffers in and making sure that people are aware of our work. And I think finally, and perhaps less glamorously, I'm kind of, I think, a pinch hitter. So if there's, we're having trouble getting something copy edited on time, I will often do that. Or if we need to make sure that we're emailing someone or we haven't been, heard from an author in a long time, sometimes I'll email that person. So sort of filling in wherever there are gaps, I think, is another sort of part of being in charge, at least at the Georgetown Public Policy Review.
Yeah, Pepperdine's a newer journal, so I'm mainly trying to lay a foundation so future generations of the Public Policy Journal will have something to look and build upon. And likewise, I'm trying to really promote it among the campus so they know what PPR is about. So hopefully in the future we won't have the difficulty recruiting and soliciting submissions that we've had in the past few years. Not quite where you guys are yet, but hopefully we can get on that level in the next couple of years.
Okay, great. Next question would be about for George Washington specifically. So you guys, there are two of you up here because you have a dual editor-in-chief model. VPR actually had that last year. I don't know if you remember Ben and Caitlin, who were here last year, but they had a dual editor-in-chief model as well. So maybe you guys could talk a little bit about how that model works for you and how you kind of assign responsibilities or what you are in charge of specifically.
Sure. I don't know if, okay, you can hear me. Good. Christine and I essentially split the articles in half so that we're each clearly in charge of one of the articles, of each article that appears in Policy Perspectives. So we found the most important thing is just to make sure that there's no ambiguity in terms of who's supposed to be doing each thing. So the tasks we have that are unrelated to the articles we're each assigned to, we just have to talk about beforehand and say, okay, I'm going to take the lead on this, you're going to take the lead on this. So we meet frequently, we email a lot, and perhaps that's one of the transaction costs of having a dual editor-in-chief position. There's got to be more communication to make sure that work isn't being duplicated, but it allows us to play to each of our strengths. And for us, it's worked pretty well.
Yeah. So we have a standing meeting every week, and then occasionally other things will come up, and we'll meet to go over those issues. And then, like Ann said, we've split up the articles. We have some book reviews. The first drafts of those just came in. They're on a shorter schedule, and we've split those up also. And then we're doing, at some point, we will switch. So for the articles, we just switched and reviewed the other set of articles that, we know what's in all of them because we jointly decided what to accept. So we had read everything at least once through before, but to have that opportunity to go through it again midway through the editorial process is really nice. And yeah, I don't know, like Ann does the Facebook because she's good at stuff like that. And I'm going to be doing the layout for the journal because I've done that in the past, doing like college newspaper. So yeah, it's just playing to our different strengths and just trying to make sure that, like she said, that we're not duplicating the work. It's like when we meet, we make up a to-do list, and then each thing is assigned to one of us as to who's going to actually carry it out. So yeah, it's worked out pretty well.
Can you guys talk more about like how you kind of decided to, have your dual EIC model? I mean, did you initially say, we're gonna, like last year, for instance, at VPR, Ben and Caitlin kind of, when they were running 2 years ago, they decided they were just going to run together as a team. Is that kind of like the same decision you came to, or were you mutually appointed to that position? I mean, honestly, the biggest benefit was that you just have more people in your organization to do things, and we found quickly that, immediately we had just one less person, after they both left. So can you talk a little bit about how you decided on that model?
We both applied for management leadership roles, but the application was set up such that we didn't necessarily apply for a specific position. So we were both selected and then jointly appointed to be editors-in-chief. And after that happened, we realized that we would need to sit down and discuss, okay, are you going to mostly deal with this aspect of the journal? Or, how we realized there was definitely a need to figure out who was going to do what. So that's just what we did.
I mean, we've largely defined our roles and what the sharing of responsibilities would be. It wasn't laid out for us. It was just, we were of the people who applied, we were the people they just thought were the best candidates, and, we're the most, I think, committed, really, to the future of the journal. So, yeah, and it's not necessarily the case. I mean, we don't, this year's batch of associate editors, and we may have to pull, potentially pick one of our successors from outside that pool of people, but we don't know how they're going to approach it. I think we're largely going to leave it up to them how they want to do it. But I think it has typically been the structure has been 2 people at the top, but they might have different titles in different years.
Yeah, the year before us, there was an editor-in-chief and a managing editor. And I think that really fit the personalities of those 2 people. And so it worked for them. And for us, we both wanted to have our hands in editing, and we both wanted to have our hands in kind of the business side of the journal. And we decided that splitting it up so that we were both editing half our articles and then splitting up other tasks kind of as needed was the best option for us.
Okay. Adam, I think we've heard a lot about the organizational structure from a lot of different journals. I mean, we heard about Georgetown's earlier. Melissa provided a little bit of details about Americans. Chicago, having a huge staff, kind of talked about their structure. Can you, as a newer journal, sort of. Can you talk about your structure and how you kind of, just the overall structure of your organization, how many branches you have, different things that you're considering doing in the coming years?
Okay, yeah, sure. Basically, we have an editor-in-chief, and that's me. And then we have a managing editor, then an online publishing editor, and we have, 7 just associate editors. Basically, the associate editors, they simply edit the articles that are submitted and choose the articles to help publish. And that's pretty much all we've done this year, publish one journal each year. In the future, we'd like to look into creating a blog like many of you guys have, doing interviews as well with some of our past graduates, how they've impacted the policy world.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that we wanted to, at VPR, we wanted to expand a lot this year, and unfortunately, we didn't really get the staff we were hoping for. I mean, I said from when we had our last workout session, we're really trying to expand with, online content and blogging, and we tried to lay out the new organizational structure horizontally instead of vertically, and we ended up actually having like a huge senior staff because we had so many first-year students from last year who are second-year students now, and very few junior staff members. So, if we were to redo that, we would have probably tried to go a little bit more vertically. But Blocker's laughing back there, I think. But so yeah, it's the structure of your organization. I think it can't be really set in stone. I think you need to really kind of be a little bit flexible depending on who you have every year. This question is open to the panel, just generally. So, the question is, how do you manage your budget? Where does your money come from? We try to have fundraisers every year to try to get a little bit of money, to just, for printing costs or whatever. We usually, in past years, it's really just been about trying to get our name out there rather than actually trying to raise as much money as we can. But you guys can talk a little bit about where your money comes from and, ideas that you've had to try to raise funds for your organization, if any.
So I'll start. So our funding comes from a couple of different places. So we do get some amount of money from the McCourt School of Public Policy through their usual, they allocate funds through the student government, and then that gets split up amongst the different student organizations. So we get, I think, this year, we got a bit more funding through that than we have previously because we really wanted them to cover our printing costs. So we were able to do that this year. And then the Georgetown Graduate Student Organization, which is sort of the student organization of the College of Arts and Sciences at Georgetown, which we used to be a part of, is still also providing some funding for us, mainly for events. So we put on a policy forum and some other events that are open to all graduate students. So they help us sort of with costs for food and plates and things like that for those. And we also typically do 2 fundraisers. So we have a Halloween party in the fall, which we use to help raise money for things like coming to conferences and also for often website costs. And then in the spring, we have another fundraiser, which is casino night. And we convince some of our professors to come and deal blackjack and things like that. Which again, yeah, and most of that money sort of through all of those different things we're using. I think last year we used primarily for thinking about updating the website, also, for buying things like acknowledgments for faculty who help us out, and that kind of thing. So those are sort of our primary streams of funding.
Our funding is a little bit awkward. It feels a little bit like I'm in middle school again and I have to ask my mom for $20 so I can go to the movies. Because we mostly just ask our director if we can borrow her credit card when we need to pay for something. We receive $1,000 from, as a student organization from GW, and that's funded through the fees that GW students pay every semester, depending on how many credits they're registered for. But besides that, we mostly are covered by the Trachtenberg School, and we don't have any fundraisers. It's mostly Christine and I running the journal, so that would be a great thing to have, but potentially difficult to organize with our small staff. And we do also receive like a couple $100s a year from our institutional subscribers. We have approximately 40 law libraries and universities that subscribe to Policy Perspectives, and they pay, like, I'm not exactly sure how much they pay per subscription, but we receive those funds and allocate them towards the production of the journal.
Yeah, it just helps. I mean, we are heavily subsidized, but it helps defray the cost a little bit. And one thing we discovered this year was that the cost of the journal to those institutional subscribers, the price had not gone up since 1997. So we raised it. Basically, it worked out very well. They told us, I guess institutional subscribers are not very price sensitive, so they said, well, if you raise it by up to this much, we don't even have to tell them. We just charge them the higher amount. And we're like, okay. And then we looked at what the price would be from 97 to today with inflation, and it was basically exactly that amount. So it's like, oh, let's just do that. So we're at least caught up to inflation. But yeah, so it's a fundraiser. I mean, we both like to bake, like a bake sale or something. I don't know, maybe we could do something of that magnitude, but it would be hard to do it, like a full-on a casino night, for example. But, you know, it's something to think about and talk to our successors about.
Yeah, as a Christian university, Pepperdine is not likely to smile upon a casino night, but yeah, actually have a similar structure to GW when it comes to money. Basically, we just ask the administration, and they're usually pretty forthcoming with the funding. Otherwise, we have a small budget. All the organizations at Pepperdine have a little bit of cash we're provided each semester, and otherwise we have to just ask the administration for funds. In the future, maybe we can look to doing some sort of fundraising activity, but right now it's probably not a realistic possibility.
And kind of building on that too, I mean, this is open to the panel as well. I mean, you know, we generally have, you know, when we're interacting with faculty members, it's generally, you know, me and maybe one other senior member of our team who's going up to the dean and kind of, you know, starting at the very highest level when we're trying to ask for money every year. And then if we have to talk to other, you know, members of the administration to try to talk to them about, you know, how we can, you know, free up some funds in certain areas. I mean, this is for the panel. Do you have any, you know, thoughts about best practices for, you know, approaching different members of your faculty or dealing with the dean as opposed to maybe a faculty mentor? So our mentor is one of the professors here who's been really great and helps us to get ideas for submissions and for articles and for speakers. And then the dean is usually just, you know, one page of numbers basically, and then we try to get the answer we're looking for and then we leave. So any thoughts about any of that and how to best deal with some members of the faculty?
We've always approached them as making sure Pepperdine know how it benefits them to spend the money on us. Basically, they have a better public policy review looks, the better the university. So we're publishing, you know, the research from the school, showcasing what the students can do. So it's basically like an investment, you know, free advertising, showing off the product that the education is providing to the students. So that's how we've always tried to present it.
Yeah, we take a similar approach at GW. Our journal is used as a marketing tool, I would say, and you know, that's one of the many ways in which it's used. And our director sends a copy of the journal with a letter that she personally signs to the deans of all of the NASPA schools each year. And so it's just a way of promoting the Trachtenberg School. And so I think that's one of the reasons she's usually pretty open to funding Policy Perspectives related things. She was glad to pay for Christine and I to come to this conference when we asked. So I think when higher-ups are made aware of how much these journals really are contributing to our schools, they realize that it's really, like you said, an investment.
Yeah. But we're definitely lucky in that our advocate is, I mean, she's the director of the program, so if she believes in what we're doing, then it'll happen, and no one's going to, you know, gainsay that, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think similarly, it's been really helpful for us, I think, have sort of tangible things to show, so to walk in with a copy of the print journal and say, like, look, this is the most recent one, sort of check out, how this looks. Or also, I think, analytics from the website has been helpful to sort of say, like, look, this is the audience we're reaching. It was great. We asked, several of us are also talking to admitted students and things like that, and we're on panels for that, and several admitted students, asked us or said that they had looked at our website and things like that. So we like to report that back to the dean and say, people who are thinking of coming here, they Google the McCord School and this comes up. So I think that's been sort of helpful in kind of keeping us really present in the administration's mind. And I think also, I was not on the board last year when this happened, but I think it was very helpful actually last year. The editor-in-chief, I think, came back from this conference and was able to sort of tell them a bit about what other schools were doing with their journals. So I think providing that context was kind of helpful as well for helping the school sort of think through the role that the public policy review could really play in sort of promoting the McCord School and giving students an opportunity to learn about running an academic journal.
This is again for the panel. Alyssa spoke previously in the last workshop about different leadership styles, and so I would ask the panel generally, how you define your leadership style. What is your leadership style? I think last year I told my team very early on that my leadership style was somewhere between pace setting and democratic, and they kind of all made fun of me for like a week. So. But I stand by that, absolutely. I can tell you what that means, I suppose. But if you guys have any, thoughts about how you would define your leadership style?
Mine's pretty laissez-faire. Just get your edits in on time. We're cool. Yeah,
I'm guessing my team could do a better job of defining my leadership style than I can. I think, perhaps not in a leadership style, but just sort of trying to think about role running a volunteer organization. That's always kind of been present in my mind, that it's not, people aren't getting paid to do this, they're doing a lot of other things. So just trying to sort of keep that in mind and balance it and be respectful of people's time, I think has been something that I've tried to do. And also to, whenever possible, encourage people's ideas. So if someone has a really cool idea for an article, or they really think, we should be doing more podcasts or something like that, sort of trying to help them get that off the ground. I've tried to do. But yeah, I think that a large part, at least that I've found, I think of being a leader in an organization like this, is it's just a lot of showing up. Like, people need to know that you will be there at all the events, you will respond to all the emails. If they get you those edits at an odd time, you will still sort of respond and get back to them sort of regularly. So I think, though it's not, I think, a particularly pithy or glamorous thing to say, I think just it's important to provide consistency. I think in organizations that can sometimes be a little bit unwieldy, or where people are sort of making trade-offs between their various responsibilities.
Yeah, I would say my leadership style focuses primarily on making people feel valued and appreciated for who they are. And we're very lucky that we don't have a lot of problems with, a ton of problems with people not doing their jobs. So that allows me to focus on the positive, I guess. We try to boost, Kristen and I both try to boost morale whenever we can, whether it's by including silly GIFs in an email, or providing home-baked cookies at our meetings. Like Robin said, people are volunteering their time, so if they don't feel appreciated for that, there's, kind of nothing in it for them, no reason for them to stay on the staff and, make the journal what it is. So.
And I'd say an example, a specific example of that is with our senior associate editors. So these are two people who were, like us, associate editors last year. And their role, we really left it up to them to take on as much responsibility as they wanted, because they're, like us, second year full-time students, in that last semester, the final stretch, and we didn't want to try to, overload them with too much. But yeah, just things like that. Like we went into that realizing how precious their time would be, and that whatever they were willing to do, we could sort of take up the slack. And it just turned out really well that they did more, took on more than I think we expected they would. But yeah, trying to be mindful of that is good.
Next question comes from the audience via our hashtag. So Mike Bach from VPR wants to know how journals basically balance the day-to-day with big picture. So, very early on for us, at VPR, we're kind of concerned about the big picture and really what we want to, what we want to achieve by the end of the year. And then that quickly, just devolves into this is what we have to get done this week. This is where we're at for NJC planning. This is where we're at for submissions, and we kind of lose track of the big picture and kind of just focus on, getting through the rest of the year. So can you talk a little bit about trying to, manage day to day with also trying to, think about how to keep the organization constantly evolving and changing? What's that? I ask the questions. I don't respond to the questions. I can answer after you guys. I'll answer after you.
So basically, like I've said before, we're just pushing towards having a journal at the end of the year. So basically, everything has been looking forward to that. So basically, we've just been day to day, letting people know the deadline's coming up if you want to be published in VPR by, it was January 9th, so we just kept kind of pounding on the door about that. And editors knew they didn't really have much till that deadline, so now we just sent them out this past week, and basically they've been good about responding to the articles and reading them. We're going to have a meeting in a few weeks to select, and just basically that's it, just all looking forward to the end picture, because that's really all we have at Pepperdine at this point.
Yeah.
I think we have gotten, I think, very caught up in the day-to-day sort of as the year has gone along, particularly as we're trying to push towards printing deadlines and things like that. I think we try to do a lot of our big picture thinking over the summer, and not to say that, you can just sort of box up big picture thinking and move on, but I think we tried to sort of sit down and try to think about what we wanted our tone to be, our voice to be, our look to be, and sort of come to agreement amongst the executive board about those kind of aspects over the summer. And also what we wanted the organization to be, like trying to create an organizational culture and make sure that people felt like they were a part of something. And I think we've had sort of varying success with those things as we've gotten into the day-to-day, but I think it helped that we sort of met periodically over the summer, and we were fortunate because many of people stayed in the DC area, so we only had to like Skype in one or two people. But I think it was helpful to have that sort of context and those ideas going into the year, so we could kind of look back to what we'd said over the summer, as we were going through and looking at articles and things like that, and be like, okay, is this kind of in line with what we were thinking when we talked about this? Do we need to revise based on sort of the day-to-day realities? And I think, we're hopefully in the next couple of weeks going to have sort of a check-in meeting focusing mainly on those larger ideas, sort of at the beginning of the semester when we're not, all caught up with midterms and finals and things like that. So that's, I think, sort of been helpful for us, although, to be honest, we don't always do a good job of it. A lot of times all of our meetings are about, when's this next deadline? How's this event coming along? But I think that's kind of the reality of how things like this tend to work. Although I'd love to hear if people have come up with ideas on how to avoid that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what we do to keep both, immediate and long-term needs in mind is we try to translate long-term strategies into like short-term tasks. So Christine and I meet for an hour every week, and we pretty much stay the whole time for every meeting. So after we've gone through did you get this email from this person? Like, what's the status on this? After we've gotten those things out of the way, we kind of tend to think, what could we or should we be doing in addition to this right now? So we've focused a lot about how we want to set the journal up for our successors. So You know, long-term goals are going to be writing a very comprehensive manual, completely revamping our website, potentially incorporating a blog, and we bite off little pieces of those long-term goals and set, you know, smaller goals that are just one small component of those longer-term goals during our weekly meetings. So that kind of makes it more manageable and helps you incorporate long-term strategic planning into your just regular to-do list.
And I would just say what Robin said about using the summer. I mean, we were meeting at least once a week during the summer also, and spent an incredible amount of time sketching out what the calendar would be and coming up with a big omnibus calendar and then individual documents. You know, these are the associate editors' dates and deadlines, just a single sheet that they can refer to very easily and see what's coming up. And I mean, we go through, it's 5 rounds of edits, right, on the articles, so it's a lot. And so just thinking about, you know, oh, well, this is around spring break, you know, do we want to try to have people get it in before spring break, or do we want to assume that they'll have a little bit of downtime over spring break to do it, and, you know, making sure that deadlines aren't bunched too closely together. And the time we invested over the summer on that, I think has really paid off.
So if I were to answer this question, I mean, it's really tough, and I think you have to be, I think in terms of the big picture, you know, looking back on the last year or so, you have to be really realistic in what you think is possible to get done in such a short period of time. I mean, we're going to be having, you know, voting for the new exec team probably in about a month, and I mean, so I'm still going to be participating in a lot of different things, but with, you know, capstone projects and, you know, finals and trying to find a job. I mean, once the new editor-in-chief is in place, I'm going to try to pass off as many duties as I can. And so I think early on it was very easy to kind of say, oh, I want to change all these things in the organization. You know, I think we tried to focus on just a couple of ideas. I mean, we definitely, you know, shot for everything, and we're only going to get to do maybe a couple of those, but we kind of just started with 2 main ideas about things we wanted to try to accomplish or try to move the journal in a certain direction, and then we kind of just thought about some ideas about how we were going to get there. So, you know, we thought, you know, about trying to expand our readership in Virginia and try to have, you know, we really tried to make a big push for, you know, focusing just on Virginia, and then we were also trying to make a big push nationally as well, and so we decided to try to get there through our print journal by sending it to as many people as we could think of, both in Virginia and then to schools across the country. We're also trying to do an all UVA graduate issue through VPR. We're actually going to have another conference here similar to this probably, but just within UVA for different graduate schools at the university to try to get staff members from different journals throughout the university to write about a specific topic and have an editorial board that's made up from graduate students from all over the university. And so we're just having a planning conference this year, but we hope that, you know, that will allow us to kind of move in the direction of actually publishing the issue next year. So, you know, there's no reason, I don't think, in terms of the big picture, why you can't, you know, plan several years down the road and just kind of talk with the next executive team to say, this is the direction we're moving in, you know, we hope you continue this process. I mean, this is the 3rd time we've done NJC, and we do it because it's what everybody has always done at VPR for the last 3 years. You know, there was never a question in our mind that we weren't going to do it because we wanted to keep the tradition going. So, and then day to day, again, it just, once the year starts, it's just like, you know, the big picture planning really has to start very early on, and when you're trying to make your schedule, and then afterwards it's very, very hard to change that up. You're just constantly focusing on, you know, meeting certain deadlines, you know, as the year goes on. So it's really tough, but good question from the audience. Last question, I think I'm going to pose to Robin, because something that we've been talking about for the last couple of years has been the policy consortium. It's an idea that we've been throwing around a lot for the last couple of years, and we haven't really made that much headway on it. Yuhan and Robin have been talking a lot about this for the last year or so. I'm going to let Robin kind of give an overview of what it is, and then Yuhan, if there's anything you want to add to it, feel free to. But I think this is a great idea. NASPA really loves this idea. If we could, in the future, try to get something to happen with it, I think it would be, a really interesting possibility for us. So, Robin, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think, the first I heard of this idea was last year at this conference, and it was kind of the idea that, we really all have a lot to learn from each other, and we have pretty similar experiences in a lot of ways. So it could be helpful to create some kind of organization that would really facilitate collaboration amongst all of these journals and kind of a sense of community. And I think there's some of the things that I thought would be most useful about that. And by all means, please, share any other thoughts that you guys have, because we don't have anything, I think, finalized or really ready to, kick off tomorrow. So there's a lot of room for development. But I think, in these workshop sessions, it's really clear to me that we really are facing a lot of similar challenges in terms of the turnover, in terms of editing process, in terms of trying to find a voice, in terms of trying to find an audience. So I think that, it could be helpful to continue this kind of conversation throughout the year. So, if you were having an issue or some kind of concern on your journal, you've got some peers that you can immediately sort of talk to or turn to, or if you've got a great idea, there's sort of an audience that's going to be really excited about it. I know that we also talked about, I think, we've been talking about individual groups and on each of our journals about how we've been trying to think about sort of writing more things down, about sort of establishing procedures, about having calendars, whether or not they get modified every year, but sort of something for people to look at and start with. So I think one of the ideas is that some kind of national journal consortium could provide kind of a starter kit for policy schools, kind of best practices that would be assembled from all of our journals, like the things that we do, the things that we think about, questions that you should be asking if you are trying to form a journal. So being a resource for other schools, or if people and journals are in different places in their development or trying new things, a place that people could be posting information or articles or some kind of blog or forum where people could be asking questions. So, if one team is really, like Chicago, doing a lot of great stuff with infographics, a place where other teams could really know about that and think, oh, those are the people who I need to ask if I want to find out what kind of software I use. Or if you're thinking, how do other teams really distribute a call for papers, there's a place that you can turn, and there's sort of a unified place, so you don't have to send out a ton of different emails and establish a list of journals. Like, there's a list right there. So I think those are some of the initial thoughts that we've had. But yeah, anyone else, please feel free to jump in.
Yuhan, anything to add, really? I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah, just one more thing to sort of build off on that. Perhaps on the less sort of community, I think it's an opportunity also, possibly for all of us, to think about branding of policy journals as a whole. So, law reviews have, I think, a pretty prestigious place in the academic community. And I think that, it's not that policy journals don't, but I think it's less of a clear thing that people have a similar picture of. If you say, oh, I was on a policy review or a policy journal, I think people don't have that, oh, okay, I've heard of that, I know what that's sort of like, and not to say that that sort of recognition is the be-all and the end-all, but I think that that could really be helpful for a lot of our publications and for getting our content out and for having people sort of thinking, oh, what are they going to publish this month? Which is, I think, what that buzz sort of factor that we were all sort of talking about yesterday.
Any other thoughts or questions for the panel? All right, well, thank you guys very much. If you just want to stay there right for a second. So I'm just going to close it down. I just have a couple of really brief closing remarks, and then you guys are free to stick around and hang out in Charlottesville or be on your way home. I really want to just acknowledge our sponsors one more time. NASPA and also PAA have been really, really supportive of this conference for the last several years. NASPA, again, Laurel McFarland, whose email address is up there, is a really great resource. She's the executive director at NASPA. Yuhan and I met with her over the summer when we were both in DC. She's very accessible. She's easy to talk to. She has a lot of really great ideas. NASPA puts out their own journal. It's called JPay. And she's a really great resource, and she would love for you guys to, I'm sure, get in touch with her. She's mentioned, everything from, just contacts for her editors, for the journal, or, linking. They send out a lot of press releases, and so, even linking, our articles or our journals to their website. I mean, they're very happy to kind of work with us to do whatever we need to do to kind of build our brand as journals. So I would really encourage you to get in touch with her. She's really great. Also, Order Up was really helpful this weekend. They're an online food ordering for quick service restaurants organization. They provided the bagels yesterday morning, and they gave us a lot of sunglasses. I'm sure that you guys got in your welcome bags. So they were really great and really helpful. They're located all throughout the country, so please use them. I think they worked out very well for us this year, and they weren't really, they just gave us everything for free, basically, because they want to really try to build up their name brand recognition. So finally, I would just say, what we do is very, very difficult. I think it's very challenging. Policy journals are, like we just said recently, are sort of a very new kind of a concept. Everybody knows what law review is. Everybody knows what, the Harvard Business Review is. Though the markets for those kinds of publications are pretty clear. You have lawyers, you have CEOs and business people. I think what we do is a little bit more challenging. We really we have to be good writers, first of all, but we also have to be concerned about data, and data becomes more and more relevant as we're able to collect it and manipulate it to kind of say what we want it to say. And finding ways to make that accessible to people, understandable by a very common, by a large group of people is very, very challenging. And so I hope that the information that we've presented here this weekend has been really helpful for you guys. I was very happy to see yesterday that Chicago said that a lot of their data visualization ideas came from, stuff that they got last year from the conference. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want from you guys. That's what we want to offer you. So, I hope that, the information is useful and that, we can continue to build upon, the best practices from some of the best journals throughout the country. Also, I have to thank several people, Locker, Chris, and Yuhan. Thank you guys very much. This is really great. Locker probably told some of you that I met him I met him 5 days ago. So we basically planned this conference. He did a lot of work for us. Chris and Yuhan really helped out a lot as well. Locker, I tried to speak with him over the phone mostly to plan a lot of this. So really great job. We definitely couldn't have done this without all of you. And also members from our editorial staff, who stopped by to help out this week. It was really great. Juliana's been taking pictures of everyone. I think everyone probably has a few pictures of themselves on her camera. So thank you very much. You've been really great. Yeah, like our Facebook page. And then finally, if you, have contacts with other policy schools that you think would really benefit from coming to this conference, we would really love to reach out to them. I mean, we've tried to reach out to, journals and schools all throughout the country to try to come. We don't want this to just be, an East Coast conference. We'd love to see, more people from Southern California come, or Texas. Last year we had, Minnesota. So if you have any thoughts for us about who might really benefit from coming, please let us know next year. And I hope we see you back next year. I won't be here, but somebody from my team will. So hashtag NJC 2016, January 15th through the 17th. And again, thank you so much for everyone who helped with all the workshops and the panels. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and get home safe. Thank you again. Yeah.